And we're live! Welcome to Prayers Radio Show number 16. I'm Reverend Rich. This is Reverend
Reverend
Paul.
Paul.
And this is our guest, Julia Mattis.
Hi, everybody.
We have a great show as always. Oh my gosh, I got my glasses on because I can't see. Seeing is something that we need to all have. And seeing that we're on show 16, this is a good thing. What do you think, Paul?
It's an amazing thing.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about Julia because she's on our show today. And what we only do on this show is about prayer. We want to know what works. We want to know what works now. What take away. Anyways. Let's go ahead and have Julia pray us in because she is an RScP, but we're going to first of all ask her a few things. And those few things are, would you like to do the first prayer for us, the intro prayer? Hello, I'm here.
Delighted.
All right, let's go ahead and pray in.
Oh, all right. So just take a deep cleansing breath and just move into this moment with me now. Nothing has come before, nothing will come after. There is only the one, the presence, the love, the here, the now, in this fabulous container that we are creating in this moment to know and share and discuss the one, our understanding of the one from the perspective of treatment and prayer. Because it's that place, from that knowing, from that truth, that we move and have our being in this moment, in this day, and in this life. And it's for that I am so grateful, so grateful to be here today with Rich and Paul to discuss the thing that we love the most that brings us together in this truth and in this moment. And I just know this show is perfect, and we release it and let it go, and together we say, and so it is.
Well, this show is mainly about science of mind and how it works and how when it's applied, bam, the prayer is answered. So, Julia, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, we know you're a prayer practitioner. You've got some events coming up, which we'll plug again at the end for our audience. Tell us a little bit about who's Julia?
Sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Rich. So about me. So I'm located in Ellicott City, Maryland, which is right outside of Baltimore. So it's almost lunchtime for me. And so a little bit about me. I am 61, and I have been an entrepreneur most of my life. I have created and started several businesses, real estate, catering, hotels, restaurants, several other industries. Most recently, I was in the real estate business. Right now, my gift, I suppose, is helping companies, individuals, and spiritual centers identify the areas where they have, let's say, gaps in their understanding, whether it's marketing, whether it's fundraising, whether it's donor development, donor cultivation. I come in and help them strategically analyze where they think they want to improve, where they want to grow, how they want to grow. I do the same thing with individuals in my coaching business and in my counseling business. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I love watching transformation. It's one of the things that makes my day every day, and I get to do it every day with fabulous people like you. And that's the other part of this that I absolutely love. I'm just wrapping up a position. I was the ad hoc development director for almost 3 years at the Science of Mind Archives. And I'm currently working in ad hoc positions in other centers and organizations around the country and in the world. I actually have a group I'm working with in Africa, and I do workshops for them every other week to teach them how to bring business skills into their center as they grow and expand the word of Science of Mind and Ernest Holmes in Africa.
So that's fantastic. I think the biggest thing our audience is, one of the things that I find very interesting is you did the Ernest Holmes, the Science of Mind archives, and you archived all that information with a lot of the senior reverends and all the other people putting in that information in. That's, I mean, for our radio show, that's the main takeaway. Plus, you're brilliant, in my opinion, and I have an opinion. Paul, what do you think, Paul?
Of course, she's brilliant. That's why she's here.
Although here's the one fundraiser I did develop for the Science Mind Archives. There's our Ernest Holmes 5-foot cutout. So I would say about 30 centers or 40 centers and 60 ministerial students now have their own personal Ernest Holmes cutout.
I got one over there.
You do indeed. You do indeed.
Well, at the end of the show, we'll have you do a plug on your site and what other things that you're doing at the end. Let's go ahead and get into the questions, because that's what Prayers Radio is about. Is what works. So your ministry is basically floating all over the place, and you've already explained what you're doing and stuff and how you're helping centers. And at the end, we'll also have your information inside of the show notes if you're okay with that, for people to other centers and things to talk to you about things that you might be able to offer to them directly as a prayer practitioner, which is good because you're going to be a reverend soon. How does prayer show up in your life?
It's really interesting. I looked at that first question, and it's an interesting question because I'm curious about the word "show up," because it's as though it's something that we do. It's as though it is something that we kind of add to our day, like you pour milk into cereal. And for me, showing up is not it is a foundational piece of how I move and live through my day. So showing up isn't a thing. It's like always there. It's almost like a track of music that runs in the background of my life all the time. In fact, I sit in prayer for most of the time. I have put my mind in such a way that I try to turn all my thoughts into prayers. It was a song I first heard when I came into my center over 13 years ago. Your thoughts are prayers. And that was really a deliberate understanding that everything that runs through our mind is a prayer in one way or another, and just being very deliberate about it. So it shows up in my life all the time. I wake up in the morning at about 6. I sit in meditation and prayer for sometimes 2 or 3 hours every day. When I was getting ready this morning, I had a text from a minister who asked me to pray for her brother-in-law who's been diagnosed with cancer this morning. It's just a constant inner dialogue that then manifests itself in a conversation like this, or a momentary putting the phone down and closing my eyes and moving inside and praying for my friend's brother-in-law. So it's an allowing, I think. I want to take that word and rather than say show up, I want to call it the allowing. Mm-hmm. It's the allowing and awareness of prayer as a constant in my life.
And that's an important thing that you're doing, because you're being open to that greater manifestation that God has for you. I think we talked about that in show 6, where it's like, I don't know what the heck I want, but God does, and God can bring me a lot better things than I could ever imagine. Instead of chicken nuggets, it brought me a chicken with all the accoutrements and all the goodies and stuff. What do you think, Paul?
Well, good question. For me personally, I don't think God is doing anything. We are doing it through the law of mind. And the law of mind is the power behind our teaching, the power behind why we pray, because we're unifying with that one power called God, source, whatever it is. But through the use of the law of the mind is how we're demonstrating our prayers.
And that's why we have the conversation of Prayers Radio, because we all see it a different way, but we all mean the same thing when we're realizing it, or maybe the words that we're speaking need to be honed a little bit better for better understanding for the masses, other people you're trying to explain it to.
Like Julia just gave me that aha moment when she said, I'm not showing up, I'm allowing it. Allowing
exactly.
that divine essence of who she is to come out.
And
so Julia, with that thought, how is tangible aspects of prayer, how are they showing up in your life? Or how have they or continue to show up in your life?
Well, my entire life is a demonstration. And I actually had a teacher, one of my very first teachers in this teaching, actually, that's what he used to always say to us. And although it was quite crass the way he said it, he called us out. He said, shut up and demonstrate. Literally. And he actually had an expletive after shut up, or before it, I guess. but it was a very eye-opening experience for me, because I was a seeker my entire life, and the element that was missing was demonstration.
Mhm.
And my entire life is demonstration. I walked away from businesses. I'm, wrapping up a marriage. I'm in ministerial school at 61. I'm navigating life in a way that I've never done before, Reverend Paul. And it is 100% due to prayer. It is due to, I do three things on a regular basis. I create the intention, I do the treatment, and then I create a mental and emotional equivalent to go with it. I do that with everything now. And the demonstrations are endless and daily. The manifestation of the opportunity to be the ad hoc development director at the Science of Mind Archives. Like, who does that? How does that even happen? I've stopped asking myself that question. How do I suddenly go to being the co-chair of a huge fundraiser at the at a center in California? I'm planning the whole thing virtually. I mean, like,
Mm.
that's kind of it's the high stuff and it's the low stuff. Meaning, it's the big stuff that demonstrates, but it's also the ability to be aware of my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I was the kind of person who very much was disassociative from my emotions. And treatment and prayer have allowed me to not be afraid of my emotions. I think there's an element of human beings that we're afraid of our emotions. We're afraid we're going to be overcome or overwhelmed by them. And I was. That was me. I'm speaking for myself. And treatment allowed me to create the container to allow myself to sit sometimes in the morning, like I did this morning, honestly, and allow these waves of emotions to come up. I'm the kind of person that never cried. I admired people who could cry. And this morning I allowed myself to cry. Now, granted, it was very short, but it's like these moments of trust and faith that are being built by constant prayer, my request. I'm asking God to be with me while I allow myself to find out who I am. So
So
it's
that's
demonstrating in every aspect of life. There isn't a place where prayer is not demonstrating.
so that's how you ground yourself, is that prayer in the morning and letting yourself be
Yes.
yourself. I think that's that's so magical. I think that's so wonderful. Uh, the next question we had, of course, is how do you stay grounded in prayer, and I think that's it. But during the daytime, when you're going through the ropes of life, if we like to call it, or different types of sayings, what keeps you grounded?
So I have a practice I do with a lot of my coaching clients and a lot of folks that I work with, which is just to take a breath and put my right hand on my heart and just allow that awareness of God to come in whatever moment. And this happened yesterday. I'll give you an example. Um, and I think we talked about this a little bit, Rich, pre-show, where you kind of get up in the morning and something happens and your day starts heading down a path that you had not planned. So here's what happened yesterday. I'm working with a center, and a minister sent out an email to the congregation that had a link in it that was actually a personal link rather than it was to a OneDrive link. And as soon as I saw it, I realized, and I did not plan to spend 2 hours helping to rectify that situation. But it was my gift because like you, I'm technically skilled, but it was the ability to just stop for a moment and say, okay, what I was working on, I put down, and I call the minister and I call the technical person and I say, okay, here's the situation. We must move quickly. And it's from a very different place. It's a very centered place. Just taking that moment to put my right hand on my chest and right on my heart and just to breathe into that moment and know that there's nothing that is going wrong. Just a mistake has been made that needs to be unmade, that needs to be, and so then I can, rather than beat myself up or be, oh, I can't believe my day's been ruined. It just it's my own personal way of shifting into a different way of being in a situation that perhaps could have elicited so many other reactions from myself and everyone else, right? But it's just knowing, it's inviting that presence into myself which then invites presence, just like we did when we started this show today. We created a container,
Hmm.
and it was within that container that the whole reality that we were experiencing shifted, and the problem was solved, and everything was fixed, and on we went. It didn't change what happened. It changed how everybody moved and felt and stepped in resource, rather than feeling stressed, rather than feeling angst. It was just a knowing and a trusting that this is just something that needs to be handled, right? Very simply, very smoothly, and very easily. So
Awesome.
it's that constant just taking that moment. Uh, Reverend Paul was on a call with us on Friday with a group of ministers and ministerial students. And I think one of the ideas he shared, which I think is good, is to set a timer on your phone.
Mhm.
That seemed to get a lot of interest with a lot of the folks that were on the call on Friday. So just these little reminders to always dip in, because this is just demonstration. This is just condition, right?
Mm.
This is just condition.
Awesome. Yeah, Paul, it's interesting. I remember that show. Paul goes, "Yeah, man, I set a timer for stuff." So look at our previous shows. You'll get some hints on how to do things a little bit better. Uh, wow, I'm in awe. That container, that's a good takeaway. You just containerize things and make. Uh, how do you you talked about how you do this for yourself and you adjust for the day. You brought that up. Because you stop for the moment, you look at it, and you pull it out, is what I heard. What do you do during the day to actually, just keep you going if there's a challenge?
Well, I think that part of I intentionally start my day. I mean, a good half an hour of that um, morning is devoted to just setting the intention around the things that need to get done that day.
Mm.
So, for example, setting the intention, sitting in for 10 or 20 minutes this morning and just knowing the perfection of this show that we're doing together. Just knowing that all that needs to be said will be said, all that needs to be heard and shared will be heard and shared. And I think that, again, coming back around to what I had said earlier, Rich, it's really about being very intentional about everything that we do and being intentional about being intentional,
Mm.
right? Because
Yeah.
and that's the importance of practice. I noticed that when I had some family things going on with my uncle being in the hospital and my mother having fallen, I noticed that when I did not take the extra time to do my prayer work or to get up and do my practice in the morning, it was much easier for me to get off track. It was much easier for me to get off base. Um, so for me, it became the reminder of the importance of practice, whenever it is, right? Whenever you devote yourself to it, whether it's going, for my brother, it's getting up at 5 and going for an hour and a half walk in the morning. That's his practice. For me, I was sharing before the show started, I'm kind of back to basics. I've pulled out my Ernest Holmes papers. And this is a series of talks that Ernest Holmes gave. And while his words and what he wrote are quite amazing, if you've never heard him talk, I urge you to go to the Science of Mind archives and actually listen. Because now I can read these papers, these talks, and I can hear him speaking. I can hear his gravelly voice with his sing-song kind of iambic pentameter, the way he speaks. And I can hear it now, and it touches me in a way that it never did before. And these are the kinds of reminders, just continuing to make sure that we practice. Being with each other. That's another important thing, is when you get off track, just like happened to me yesterday, a minister, he's feeling off track. And he reached out and we talked for an hour and we did a treatment together. And this is why we have each other, right? Consciousness is relational.
The consciousness is relational. It is, but you always come from a place of I, correct?
When I
You have
treat,
to. Well, yeah. I mean, you have
yeah.
to go from inside to God works through us and for us. I think I've said ad nauseum, but
Well,
it's true.
as long as we understand that the I is the universal I.
Mm.
And that's an oxymoron. That's a bit of an oxymoron, but it is a universal I. I am unifying with myself as God. So
What do you
I am unifying with the multiplicity of God.
what do you think about that, Paul? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, she's right on. The multiplicity of God is that we're all individualized essence of that one power, whatever you want to call it, spirit, God, Stan, whatever it is. And we unify with that. And when we unify with that, we bring the power of that in through and as us.
That's the key there. I always ask, with Paul and I always have these conversations. If you've followed us, we always talk about this, and then we call our guests on, and they're like, I got to say, Julie, you said that, the way you expressed how he
Mm.
talked, because it's the 1950s and 60s, and we talk in a certain way in this genre. And it's like, I'm laughing inside, go, oh, yeah. You listen to Holmes and some of the other philosophies out there have speakers also, they all speak like that. And it's like, oh my gosh. Well, Paul, you got the next question, man. I've been talking too much.
So I know you mentioned this before, Julia, but if you can go into in depth, how has your prayer evolved through where you are now from when you began?
You know what? It's interesting. Very good question, Paul. My praying has devolved.
Mm.
Okay, it has devolved, and I'll tell you the reason why is because I started with God is, I am, right, the 5 steps of prayer truth.
Hmm.
And then as I moved into so I've been a licensed, I'm relicensing this year for the 5th time, I believe. So I've been licensed for 10 years now, I believe, either 8 years or 10 years. And I went through this period of time where I wrote these elaborate prayers. I mean, they were like 2 pages long. Because what I do like to pray out loud. However, I do also like to write them. And it's very interesting, Paul. Just in the last couple of weeks, I kind of made this commitment to go back to basics. And I'm kind of back to God is, I am. God is, I am. So it's actually devolved again because I realized that I was getting too much into my head. And
Yeah.
really the trick, the power of this tool is to unify inside the emotion, inside the consciousness, separate from words, right? We have a tendency to trap ourselves with words. And I think you kind of alluded to it, Rich, earlier on when you said, well, maybe the three of us kind of need to get together and have a mutual understanding of what the words mean. We'll never get to that. We will never get to that because my experience of the word will always be different than your experience because my experience is a feeling. It is an essence of who I am. My understanding of a word is tied to my experience of that word. So while we'll get close and we'll probably be able to describe the peanut butter and jelly sandwich to each other, yours will be smooth peanut butter on white bread with strawberries, and mine will be crunchy peanut butter on graham crackers with, with grape. So it will always be a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but the nuances of that sandwich will always be your own and my own,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, we talked about that in one of our shows about everybody pulls from the dictionary because where do you think you got the words from and who wrote it and what did they mean by it? If you go back to the old English dictionaries before that, and I've got one that's a medieval time when I was looking at the words going,
And they were this big. I've
yeah,
got one. I've got the English Oxford Dictionary upstairs.
yeah,
My mother brought it from England, and
yeah,
it weighs about 30 pounds.
yeah, yeah. It's not something light. I've got a big fat one over here. One of my teachers said, "Get a good dictionary." He says, "No, no, no. This is a dictionary." The huge thing. And so I hear you. I hear you. The how do you explain? I mean, you're a practitioner, so I could say this. How do you explain the philosophy to somebody that doesn't even have a clue on it? Hi, I'm Billy Bob, and what are you? Well, you're a cult or this or that. No, no, we're philosophy. What? How do you explain that to somebody?
It's really interesting. I have been asked that question many, many times, and I have literally never had anybody do that to me. And I
Really?
think the reason is because I invite people into my sphere and my consciousness who are open. And
Mm.
so I have yet to ever have a conversation with anyone like that.
And
Even now I'm a virtual practitioner. I moved my license 2 years ago to the virtual practitioner corps, but I was in a center for 10 years, and I literally never had anybody ask me the question. It is a conscious decision that I made, that I understand that the people that will be attracted into my consciousness will be ones who will come in with some kind of either openness or understanding. And it then becomes for me a process of finding out what they need. And so I've never actually ever tried to sell anybody on what we believe.
But
It's really about asking, like when people would come up to the table when I sat at the table and they were new, the first thing I would do was give them the same book that I got, this thing called You.
Mm.
I mean, that was, I hate to say that that's what hooked me, but when I was new to my center, we used to give out this thing called You. And I have literally gone through 4 iterations of that book. I have read it so many times and highlighted it so many times. And oftentimes I won't say anything to anyone. I will simply give them the book, invite them to read it, and to come back and speak with me when they've had a chance to look at it. If they go away and don't come back, it means it wasn't meant for them.
wow,
Mm.
that's deep. Well, we're at our 5-minute mark right now. I just want to put that out there. Yeah, that's deep. I mean, you have to. I understand that, and that works out well. But there will always have to have a time where you have to explain it. God is, I am, and how it works with the prayers. But I think it's awesome. I mean, you've explained it perfectly. Paul, go ahead and take the next question, if you would, please.
Oh, I guess we already answered it. What would be your favorite book of Ernest Holmes?
This thing called You.
And what draws you to that book? What made it one of your favorite books at the time?
Well, I think because so I mean, you can see over, I don't know if you can see over here, but I've got 2 copies of the textbook over here, and they're, 2.5 inches each. And one of the things that appealed to me about this teaching when I first came into it, the thing that got me about this thing called You, is that there was absolute peace in it. There's absolute joy in it. There's an essence of Ernest Holmes that comes across in this book that is poetic, that is celebratory of life. It is full of treatment. Every page has a treatment. And I read those treatments before I even understood what treatment meant.
Wow.
And so then the logical and sequential unfolding of moving into Foundations class was already in some level in my subconscious. That's why I give that book out and don't ask any questions until somebody has read it, because it is a gateway to consciousness. Literally, that book is a gateway to consciousness.
So we'll put the book in the show notes, of course. I think Jim said that was his favorite too.
Each person we had on so far, that has been their favorite book. It is
What's
an
your
amazing
favorite?
book. As you said, the treatments there are resonating with whoever's reading it.
And that's true. I listen to it on Kindle. I just tell, I'm not going to say the A word because she'll start talking to me from Amazon. But what is your favorite Ernest Holmes quote?
Let's see. What is my favorite Ernest Holmes quote? There is only one life. This life is God. This life is perfect. And this life is my life now.
And so it is.
So it is. How does spiritual mind treatment show up in your life? I mean, I think you've already said that. You just are, and then it manifests itself. At least that's what I heard, Paul. What did you?
Yeah, about the same.
Well, when do you actually release a prayer to law for you?
Before I started.
There you
Can you
go.
tell us a little bit more about that, Julia?
Yeah, sure. And it's interesting because I actually, and I was reading about this in the Ernest Holmes papers. Right now, I'm kind of toggling up between 224 and 270. And one of the things that he talks about, especially on page 226 and 227, is that the word and the prayer, it's the intention to do the prayer and the prayer itself are one and the same. The word and the manifestation are one and the same. And he says to pray as though there is no past, no present, and no future. So they become one. And so the release has to be done before the prayer begins, because it means you've attached yourself to the outcome if you can't release before you start.
That is wonderful. And we got the page number there, folks. So, in the show notes, we can just sort of pull that up. That's beautiful. That is, oh my gosh. What one takeaway would you give our audience from the show? I think you just gave it, but that's...
Wow. What one takeaway would I say? The takeaway is the importance of practice. Really, I think the importance of practice. If there's one thing that I can tell you that has changed my life, is the commitment to the practice. It never looks the same any day. I mean, I say the word practice, but every day is different. Some days I write, some days I listen, some days I sit on the front porch and listen to the birds. Some days I read, like I have been doing the last 2 days. Do something. Feed your soul in some way every day, because that becomes the opening. That becomes the opening.
I think we said in one of our shows that if you don't put something in your mind, somebody else will, or something else will. And that's something very important, because, I remember the Billy Blanks quote that I did, Paul. He said, "Oh, you let your mind wander, and it goes all over the place." He said something to that extent. What's your site? How can people get a hold of you? What's your site, or
I actually don't have a site. It's Julia Mattis at hotmail.com.
Well, I can help you with that.
I've heard.
And I'm good at what I do, and I know you're good.
I know you are. It's interesting. I have, even when I was in real estate, even before that, I've always believed in the law of attraction. The right and perfect people will be attracted to me, and even though I teach marketing, it's interesting. I haven't sent out a marketing piece about myself in 2.5 years, and yet I have more business than I know what to do with. So, so there's a dynamic. I think websites, and I think pamphlets, and I think it's good when you're getting started, because they're almost like training wheels.
Right.
They're training wheels that create the habits and the patterns and the mindsets, I think, right?
Yeah.
Paul and I have talked about this as far as even his own work. It's an understanding of how it serves you, and if you've transcended the need to have a service vehicle in any capacity, then you kind of go, it's just like going right to source.
That's it right there. Because if you don't know what you want, you haven't planned it out. And if you haven't even looked at it, you don't know where you're going.
Did I freeze?
But then again, you unfreezed.
Sorry. All right, good. I was going to say, that was kind of like, that was a very interesting point for me to freeze at. I was like, whoa.
That's the universe going, yes. Right, Paul? That's the universe going, yes. So I'm Reverend Rich. We're Parish Radio, and this is Reverend Paul. And what's your site, Paul?
I am spiritalive.com.
Oh, Julia disappeared on us.
Oh no, her connection.
She's back. Hold on, let me add her. Oh, welcome to technology. So we switched over. Okay, so
we're having
You're still there, Julia. No, you're still there.
Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, we've just been having storms here on the East Coast, so
yeah, I know the technology guy. Well, you want to pray us out?
I'd love to. Hey, listen, this was fun, guys. Really, I so enjoyed being both.
Well, we love having. Yeah, we love having guests like yourself that know that consciousness and know that inner self, and apply the law and apply the philosophy. What do you think, Paul?
I think you're right. This is amazing.
Well, I had this revelation the other day that we're always swimming in consciousness, whether we realize it or not. It's a quote that Ernest Holmes writes in his book also, where he says, "We're just like fish looking for water."
Wow, that's the takeaway of the day.
Right.
Ah.
We're just like fish looking for water, and it's flowing through our gills.
Nice.
And that is a direct quote from Ernest Holmes. I just love the guy.
I know. We all do. You did some good work. Go ahead and pray us out if you will.
Okay, and my network quality, I'm noticing is kind of bouncing around. So if you lose me again, just feel free to jump in and finish out, okay?
And
That's
you're
where
never
we have a
lost.
conversation.
Never lost. Never lost. All right, guys, just bring it in. Oh, and thank you, God. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for this time that we've been able to spend together this morning, talking about, sharing about the thing that we're most passionate about, which is treatment, prayer, the oneness of God, the uniting and the unifying the consciousness and the awareness of that consciousness, and how good it is, and how great it is, and how grateful I am to know this, to come together with people that I love, to share it together, to share it with the world. Because as we know, that anything that we do in consciousness is always far greater than anything that we'll ever do in the world of condition. And that is the power, the knowing the truth. And so it is.
So it is.
Our day
Julia
is
Mattis.
blessed because of you, Julia. Thank you.
Right back at you.
Well, we're Prayers Radio, and again, if you need a prayer, if you don't do a prayer, you haven't got a prayer, so go to our site. We do have that link directly there, so you can build your own prayer, or have one of us, or call one of us. I mean, you know, we're in the show notes, and we're on the site.
And remember, there's nothing big or small in prayer.
Exactly. That's only restricted by your mind. So let's say goodbye.